I'm the ass
My
for what I
twisted
said.
humor, make a mess so
No,
often.
I don't think so.
The hell?
Oh, honeybee,
Okay, this
come
first
get
one is
this
coming from the Two Hot Takes
ball.
subreddit. It's
The
10
fuck?
hours old. Titled, Am I the Asshole
Jesus.
for Wanting My Future Husband's
I'm
Groomsmen
the
to
thrill
Style
of
His
the
Mustache
double
Differently for Our Wedding?
line.
My future husband's groomsmen, along with my bridesmaids, all have
Be
no
the
issue
net.
fitting a
That's
wedding
the
aesthetic.
question.
The only problem I have is one of his groomsmen
Be the
happens
net.
to have
That's
a more
the
1920s
question.
aesthetic imperial style mustache with an extra curl. Think a more dramatic Captain Hook mustache. In my opinion, it tends
called
to be
hot.
distracting in photos and in person to the point where it's all I focus on. Now, I'm unsure as to if it's just my neurodivergent surfacing, but I need to know if it's an unreasonable request to ask him to change it to something less distracting. My future husband thinks I'm being a bridezilla.
Okay. I love this. It's a great start. Anything with a mustache is funny to me, just off the bat. I feel like I've heard stories like this, but it always has to do. Typically, when I've read stories, it's a bridesmaid with their hair color.
Yep, bingo.
So it's interesting for this to be a mustache. My confusion is, how can he change his mustache? I don't know what you're able to do with that.
No, well, she does include a picture.
That is, whoa.
That
is extreme.
It is a very aggressive. Like, I'm honestly impressed with just what product they use.
That is a full Salvador Dali.
Oh,
Yeah.
that is hilarious.
It is very intense. But I think it's one of those things where you wouldn't ask a bridesmaid to change their hair. No. You can't ask him to do this. Like, this is, you're being rude at that point.
It's part of who he is.
Exactly.
At that point, don't marry
him. If you care
him.
about him and you want him to be a groomsman, the mustache is part of that.
Yeah.
I just don't think there's anything he can do. Because if it's not curled like that,
yeah,
then it looks crazier.
If he's got a full beard where it could just be like combed into the beard, it might work.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never had a beard. It's hard to.
I don't know I've never had a beard of that level.
The logistics.
Or a mustache of that level. It is distracting.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, if I was attending that wedding and I saw that, I'd be looking at him the whole time.
For sure.
Admiring it. That's just part of it. And I think they might have to accept that. He could try to brush it into the beard if that's possible. Mm-hmm. Never heard of that.
I don't know. I don't know how beards work. But yeah, I think it's kind of that. It would be a double standard if you asked him to change his appearance, because I think it's been well determined. You can't ask that of a woman to do.
Right.
You can't lose weight. You can't dye your hair. Like, that's just, you're being an asshole.
Yeah.
Your
friend might be too
was
dark,
asked to be a part of your wedding for a reason, because you love them. You want them standing up there with you.
I'm
to
painting.
support you on
I'm
your day.
good.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you can change that.
I added too much black.
I understand people wanting people not to take the focus away. Mm-hmm. At the same time, my perspective is, if it were my wedding, I'd want all the bridesmaids and groomsmen to look also super awesome.
Yeah.
I think that adds to the epicness of the wedding. That's my perspective. So
I
I
did all this gray for this little square.
I like
that. Fucking God.
Did you see the post about a woman who was asked to wear like a blonde wig and colored contacts, and it was every single person in the bridesmaids party? They were like trying to do an Elsa theme basically, and so I think she might have been black, or like one of the girls was black at least or something, and so she wanted everyone to wear a blonde Elsa wig and like blue colored contacts.
I didn't see this, but that is crazy.
Yeah, like, and people were like, you're what? You're changing everything about me.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
The theme is you have to not be who you are.
Yeah.
That's wild. No, that's crazy.
I think there was a happy update, if I recall, where the bride did get talked to and like realized like, okay, damn, like, no, this is starting to look a little weird, kind of giving Aryan race and maybe some other problems.
Yeah.
So she did come to her senses at least.
Okay, good. I'm glad she had that massive revelation.
Yeah. Top comment on this one, just grow one that's more magnificent than his. Next comment down, it's sad, but I could. I'm a 57-year-old woman.
There you go.
So it's not impossible.
No, I think that'd be awesome.
Not impossible for people.
If the theme was mustaches, then everyone could have mustaches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, This is so weird, and maybe it's like a PCOS thing, but I get like one random chin hair.
Really?
Like literally, and it's so
Thank
dark,
you.
and you just kind of feel it, and I do get scared about being able to grow a beard.
I think it's impressive. I think if you can, you should at some point.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Okay, moving along. This next one is 4 days old, coming from Am I the Asshole, titled, Am I the Asshole for Sending My Daughter to School in Her Pajamas? My 7-year-old daughter, Elsie, has recently started to make mornings more difficult by throwing a fit when we ask her to get dressed for school. We've tried setting her clothes out the night before, but she still makes an issue out of it. And she doesn't want to sleep in her clothes, so that's not an option either. My wife leaves for work before me, so I'm normally the one who has to deal with the tantrums in the morning. I woke Elsie up, and as always, she refused to get dressed. I wasn't really in the mood to deal with her bullshit, and I didn't have the energy to fight with her about it. So I told her that it was okay, and I'll just take her to school in her pajamas. She looked pretty shocked, because I don't think it was the outcome she was expecting, but the rest of the morning went a lot smoother than normal. We got in the car, and she was more quiet than usual, so I could tell she wasn't really sure what to think of it. But after driving a while, I guess the realization set in, and she told me she wanted to go back home and change. I told her she had already made her decision, and I wasn't driving her back home now. She started freaking out, saying she wanted me to drive her back home and she didn't want to go to school in her pajamas. But I wasn't turning the car around. So we arrived at school, and she eventually went in. After my wife came home from collecting her from school, she looked pissed. She didn't say anything in front of Elsie, but later in the evening, as expected, she went off on me. She started saying that I had embarrassed her and made us look like bad parents who can't be bothered to dress our daughter. I told her that I'm sure Elsie isn't the first child to go to school in pajamas, and it's not the end of the world. And she wears normal clothes every other day, so one day in pajamas isn't going to make everyone think we're bad parents. She told me she thought it was a cruel thing to do to Elsie, but in my opinion, it was harmless and taught her a lesson.
How old is this daughter?
7 years old.
7 years old.
Which is like, what, second grade?
Yeah, I don't think... I'm putting myself in the shoes of like a teacher or something. I don't think I would think. It depends on what these pajamas are. I feel like a lot of pajamas look like regular clothes.
Yeah,
just
I have 2
pajama pants
cats.
and a t-shirt.
Yeah.
That would look normal. What I am flagging though is I don't like that he took it into his own hands of like, well, this is how I'm going to parent our child.
Yeah.
And it's like different. And the way he's talking about his wife is also, it's very light. But there's this thing of like, oh, of course, she went off on me, and I think this was right, and she disagrees. And I'm like, you're putting this out there for a bunch of people on the internet, as opposed to talking to your wife about how you solve this dilemma together.
Yeah.
It just feels like communication could have been had.
Absolutely.
A little bit.
It's definitely giving that like exacerbated undertone. Like It's kind of like scoffing at her, like, she's overreacting again.
Do you have stories where the person's not necessarily the asshole for what happened, but they're the asshole for how they wrote the post?
Yes.
Because that happens every time. Every episode we have, I'm like, I just don't like you because of the way you're talking about your wife who's not here writing this post.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily the case here, but it is still, I think she's justified in being mad at him for doing this and not telling her.
Yeah, I think there was like a better way to go about this too. One, he could have been receptive to the feedback. Like, I get it. I think this was a good lesson for Elsie to learn, but I hear you. Next time, I'll do something else. But I think even in the moment, she's 7. She's trying to push boundaries. She's trying to determine her own autonomy, what little a 7-year-old does have. And so, as a parent, you could have maybe thought ahead a couple steps and been like, we're probably going to get to school. She's not going to want the pajamas. Let me grab a pair of pants and a sweatshirt and just bring it in the car in case she does change her mind. Because I think when you get to the point of you're at school and she realized that you called her on her bluff, she's gonna realize that the boundary is there. Like, she kind of learns at that point, like, I fucked up.
Especially if you do that, she learns that you're playing 4D chess that she can't compete with.
Exactly.
And it's like, oh my God, do I have an original thought? You're thinking of what I'm thinking of before I think it? It would ruin her in a way that I, as a parent, might be good. I don't know. I struggle with a lot of stories that are about parenting. So like, I don't have a kid. You can say like, well, you should do this. But I'm like, if I had a 7-year-old who was doing this as well, I'd probably cave in. I feel like.
I'd turn the car around.
Yeah.
I would.
I probably would too. I'd hate embarrassing someone.
Yeah.
And I also remember what it was like being in elementary school.
Oh
and
my
just
God.
knowing you're gonna be
Let's use
judged.
white pen.
Kids bully for way less.
Oh my God, yeah.
Use
It's
white
terrible.
paint.
Especially nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Kids that know that they have access to the internet,
Oh my gosh.
their insults are devastating.
I mean, I worked in a kindergarten classroom. I was like a teacher's aide back in 2011 and 2012. And it was a kindergarten classroom. And the bullying that was happening back then, like technology wasn't even as prevalent. And now like kindergartners have cell phones.
Yeah.
It's crazy out there.
Yeah.
I don't know how people are doing it.
I wouldn't be able to survive.
No. I will say, like, it does sound like he did try a lot of different options, though, like sleeping in the clothes the night before. My brother does that with his kids because they're terrors in the morning.
So funny.
Absolute terrors. So there are options, like, he's tried, so it's kind of like this is a last resort, but
I agree with what you said, though, about, like, it's not even, is it even the clothes, or is it just her wanting to say no? Because, like, you don't get to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
So she's going to find something else to do that with.
I know. I want an update on this one, even though it's
Yeah.
like, it's so simple.
Right.
Top comment, not the asshole. Your daughter was testing boundaries and she learned the limit. If you had turned around, she might have done the same thing the next day and started a new pattern. By sticking to your decision in a harmless environment when your daughter was in no danger, she learned a lesson about consequences of her actions. Plenty of kids show up in pajamas, costumes, funky, cool, not funky, smelly clothes all the time.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah. We do have a comment from a teacher, which I think is great. As a teacher, I see kids coming to school in pajamas all the time, and it's not even an issue. Kids will come dressed in the most random clothes in elementary school, and that's part of the joy of being that young. Haha. Hopefully now Opie's daughter will actually consider what she wants to wear to school before she leaves the house.
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
She's not going to stand out.
No.
I mean, yeah.
I feel like I saw a TikTok of a little girl wearing like a Belle, like, or Snow White or something, dressed to school every day, and so they had to have like 4 variations of it to like always have one in the wash.
Yeah.
So it's like kids are goofy.
Oh yeah.
But you know, she's only 7.
Yeah. No, I agree with that, and I agree on holding those boundaries, but I do think they should do it together as parents.
Communicate a little better.
Yeah.
Teamwork makes the dream work. One of this week's partners is Next Evo.
I'll tell you
Grab my
what I'm
Sharpie.
leaving in the past. Going to bed in the middle of the night.
Years since that day he upeo.com with promo code THT. Okay, this next one, it's a doozy.
Okay.
Coming from True Off My Chest, posted a day ago, titled, "My brother-in-law is the reason why my husband left me. I don't know what to do now."
All right. Buckling up.
Getting into it. We're getting into it. Those are little warm-ups for us. I, female 38, met my brother-in-law, 38, at uni. He asked me out in our first year, and I refused. He called me the C word and that I am shallow. My best friend told me that it was a harmless comment from a drunken guy who got rejected. I never thought of myself as shallow. It was his demeanor and awkwardness that was off-putting to me. Anyways, he proved my friend right, and other than these comments, I have never felt uncomfortable during my uni years because he never bothered me again. Not even looked my way. Next time I met him was when my baby sister, female 28, introduced him to me as her boyfriend. I didn't even recognize him at first because it was like 9 to 10 years since that day he talked to me. He was visibly annoyed that I didn't recognize him, and he called me a liar. The family was skeptical at first about him, but he seemed to treat my sister right, and she seemed happy. Parentheses, he is very rich. Taking her all over the world, and he seemed kind with her too. They got married after a year of dating. They now have 3 children. I met my now ex, male 40, 5 years ago, and the only odd comment from my brother-in-law was that I was still as shallow and superficial as I was in university. At the time, I took it as a joke, but in hindsight, when I found out the truth and started thinking back looking for red flags, this was probably a big one. He never showed any signs that he disliked my husband, and he was always decent enough with his indifference to have a close friendship with my husband and I. Didn't seem odd because he was always kind of a recluse anyways. A year ago, my husband came home and accused me of cheating, and he had evidence. The guy
I
contacted
gotta plug in
him,
my
and
computer.
he had nudes, etc., of me on his phone. The guy told my husband that he didn't know at first that I was married, but as soon as he found out, he contacted my now ex. He even apologized to my husband. I have never met this guy in my life. Nothing I said or did made my husband believe me. He left me, and our divorce is pending. Then, yesterday, the guy contacted me. He apologized for what he did and told me that he is friends with my brother-in-law.
I
sent
don't
me
think that's
conversations,
something you forgive.
Endless conversations my brother-in-law had about me for years. He has never forgotten that I, in his words, quote, didn't even give him a chance and only judged him by his looks.
Bitch, you're married with
Called
3
me the C
kids.
word in
Move
that
on.
chat too. Both group chat with his friends, but mostly with this guy. They planned this attack, and my brother-in-law somehow got access to my photos. The reason this guy contacted me now is that he felt guilty, because even when my marriage is over, my brother-in-law still was angry and hateful, especially when he heard that I was on a date last weekend. So the friend felt that he didn't help his friend, but ruined innocent people's lives instead.
So if you helped your friend,
Not
would
sure
you
what to do.
have
My
felt
brother-in-law
bad?
has actually been happier and more sociable than usual since my divorce, and now I know why, although first I thought he felt sorry and wanted to support me. He jokes about me ending up an old maid with cats as companions, and it doesn't sound like jokes anymore. He means them. I don't want to ruin my sister's life. She's very happy with her husband. I'm not sure if I should tell my ex or not. I'm very heartbroken that he didn't believe me. I love him very much. He is the love of my life. But I'm not sure if I can forgive him for not believing me. But he is a victim in this too. So maybe he needs to know for closure. I'm so terribly sad and hurt. I'm sorry this post has gotten very long.
Jesus.
God.
Goddamn.
Okay. A lot of elements to this one. A lot of shitty people in this one.
Oh my
I
god.
keep...
So this guy's a monster, has held on to a rejection from over 10 years or 9 years ago. Still holding that level of resentment is psychopathic. That's wild. This friend of the brother-in-law's just went along with this plan. I mean, are they both in on, that's a crime, I believe.
Revenge porn.
Yeah, that they both are
They could.
within that. I think she should communicate this whole thing to someone, because that's a crime. And I mean, in regards to her saying, I don't want to ruin my sister's life, her brother-in-law ruined her sister's life. Like, by doing that, you ruin, when you commit a crime of that level, you're ruining everyone's life around you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she should absolutely tell.
I would definitely press charges for the revenge porn.
Yeah.
I would be very scared, actually, that he still has access to whatever home cameras or your cell phone, your iCloud.
Where the hell did he get that stuff? Because it's what the hell? That's terrifying.
Trying really hard not to touch any of the wet
that's
stuff.
another thing.
Hacking.
So I don't know what. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know what levels of crimes, how many have been committed here, but I know there's at least a couple. He's stalking her.
I mean, at minimum, it kind of feels like that. And like, there's so much to unpack here, because it's like, did he plant cameras in her house? How did he get those photos? But at the same time, like, stalking. Did he actually meet the sister organically? Or was he still so pissed at this woman for denying him in college one random drunken night that he then sought out her sister?
Yeah. And that's something I don't know if she'll ever get a full answer to.
No,
I mean,
he'd never admit that. There's no way.
No, and I think it's safe to assume that, but like, how are you going to find that out? But I am very curious where these photos came from. She didn't really go into more details of what they were, and that's fair. But that's shocking as hell, and it is sad that the husband just immediately was like, divorce, I'm done.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't want to ask a single
Should
word.
I do the
especially if
rest
she
in
shows
Sharpie?
her husband these
I think I will.
text messages and everything. Then he'll know. I mean, at that stage, I don't know what I would do as her, because now you know, like, oh, you didn't trust me for a second.
Yeah.
That's tough. But she absolutely should not just keep this a secret.
No, you have to tell him.
Yeah.
You have to. I think like he was obviously probably really devastated, but it does kind of highlight maybe a crack in their relationship that he didn't believe her. But then again, at the same time, he's got pictures, he's got screenshots, he's got this concrete proof. And how do you like turn a blind eye to like what's right in front of you?
It's tough.
It's so complicated.
I can't just demonize him, but it's hearing this whole story from her perspective. I can't help but just be like, damn, you got let down by everyone.
Yeah.
I don't know. And also, like, going back, and it's too late for this for her, but when I guess she found out her sister was dating this guy, but I think what he said to her when she rejected him is worth bringing up. Like,
Absolutely.
just being like, yeah, he was horribly rude and misogynistic to me years ago when I rejected him. That's worth bringing up to your sister.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that he's still clearly harboring those feelings. I mean, those group chats were recent.
Right.
Like, he's still...
And she didn't know that was going on, though,
No.
until after all this, but I think she absolutely should let her sister know.
Absolutely. I think it's hard because, like, my sister is so happy, she's in love, but she also doesn't know who she's married to.
Exactly.
Like, this guy is capable of insane, scary, psychotic behavior.
Right.
She needs to know.
Yeah. And that's your sister, you know, like, if it's a family member, you know, the whole idea of like, well, that's, I don't know, I would let
This actually looks pretty
my
good.
family members know if I'm like, you don't know this person, they're
Yeah.
lying to you, so I'm gonna let you know.
I honestly feel like I would sit down and have a family meeting and like share these screenshots and be like, hey, this friend of his reached out to me. We all need to know like this information. Like, my life was ruined because of this. I don't know how you want to proceed forward with your marriage, but like, I personally don't want any more contact with him. That's a boundary for me. And like, everyone kind of needs to have that like sharing of information, because otherwise I could see the parents being like, oh, you know, just forgive.
The amount of times that happens in stories is shocking to me.
It's exhausting.
You have to, at this point, expect that the parents would be like, well, we don't know, or he's a good guy, or he's just hurting. No.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Damn.
There are a lot of comments from OP, like so many. People are definitely talking about suing. Can you and your spouse sue for defamation? I don't know about these things. Not sure if police here care, to be honest. So maybe
Probably
they
not.
don't live in the States or somewhere. Well, that's extremely serial killer behavior, ... OP responds, so you understand my fear. Which the top comment on this one does kind of pick up on the fact, it wouldn't shock me if this guy found your sister and is dating her just to remain close to you.
Yeah.
And OP does respond, I feel so too. It makes it even worse.
I hate that there's children involved in this too.
Yeah, 3.
That sucks. I don't think it changes any of the actions she should take.
Mm-mm.
But that sucks. That situation sucks.
Yeah.
I think I
That's a monster.
butchered that.
And I think, unfortunately, I think the sister stays with him. Like, if we're imagining how this plays out, if everything else in their life is perfect, I don't think she's gonna let this ruin her life.
Yeah. It makes it extra scary how much he can put on a facade. That even OP was like, oh yeah, I think things are fine.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turns out, no, he was obsessed this
Yeah.
whole time to a degree that is borderline fiction. That sucks that she should cut him out of her life. And if that means cutting your sister out of her life, I don't know what you do. This is a situation that doesn't have a good outcome no matter what.
No, and you honestly need to for your own safety.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
This is just not safe or healthy for you anymore.
Right.
We do have some insight about the nudes and like how OP thinks he got them. Someone commented, I'm just confused how he was able to get nudes from you. Maybe you should be careful about having pics like that in your regular photo album and put them in a hidden folder. They also make apps for that kind of stuff. If your brother-in-law had it in for you, then not much you can do about that. And since your ex is out of the picture, it's time for you to move on and live your best life and close this chapter of heartbreak you've experienced. Which I will just say, like, it's not her responsibility to go through extra steps to hide these photos.
That's crazy, especially nowadays with all the like software that I've heard about in Reddit stories.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had situations where people have found like, oh, our friend was making AI content with us, and it's just like there's no, it's not your responsibility, and there's almost no escape from it for some, like, until laws are made.
Oh, the
it's
eyes.
just unfair.
Yeah.
But
Well, and AI is starting to look so believable. I mean, even with like deep fakes, that's been happening for years now, and it's despicable. Like, it's going around right now because I think Taylor Swift is like starting to be brought into it, and they're talking about legislation, which is amazing. Like, it needs to happen, but it's not on the victim's like responsibility, which they're kind of toting that line of like, are they victim blaming with that comment?
Yeah.
But OP does respond. They're on my iPhone and my husband's, which if he had the pictures, how did he not recognize like, oh, she sent these to me? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right. Yeah. Especially then.
But OP does comment shortly after and says, oh God, I just remembered something. My sister has my passcodes. He is an IT guy, but maybe it wasn't that he hacked my accounts or something complicated. Maybe she just gave him the password.
That's, yeah. I mean, if it's on their iPhones, it's probably, and this guy knows IT. It's probably something he accessed. It's still, that's such a breach of privacy, and it's still the same level of behavior that I think is so dangerous and wild. No, it's yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. Like, it's nuts.
No, and it's still very fresh. I mean, it's only a day old. I feel we're gonna get an update on this one, so we'll all keep an eye out. There's a lot more comments from OP, so if you want to get into that, I will be sure. Morgan, post link. Remember, I'll try to post a link, you guys, so you can go read.
This
But
actually
I think
looks
OP
fire.
has been well supported by friends and family.
And I don't care
She
what
makes a
anyone says. I
comment
don't care
that
what the
they
haters say.
believed her, at least.
This looks great.
And then does say, like, I'm very hurt and angry that he didn't believe me, but let's face it, I would have probably done the same thing.
Are they back? Is the spouse back with her yet, or
no comment about that yet?
No comment on that.
I'm hoping.
And it's only a day.
Yeah, only a day.
I hope that works out. Because if it's only a day, he's upset right now. But if he can, if they can clear up the situation.
I think so. I think it's salvageable, especially with all the proof.
Yeah.
Like, this guy coming clean, she has all the proof now. And if they were really in love, like, I'd be able to forgive. I'd be able to be I'm sorry. Like, we got to move past this. Like, I still love you. So I think there's hope.
Right.
We'll watch for the update. Fingers crossed.
Who should I paint next?
And the spouse sees that proof, and then I don't know what you do if the spouse found out
I watched a video about Once Upon a Time. Should I paint Mr. Gold?
Would get charges pressed against
Exactly. Yeah. No, I mean, he could try to kill him.
Yeah.
I mean that genuinely.
Yeah. I mean, people have done that on other stories.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would go the legal route and get some coin for all of your suffering. Awful. Another one of this week's partners is an important at LumiDeodorant.com. Deodorant. If you are sensitive for animals getting injured, I would recommend skipping this story. It's gonna get worse before we get better here.
Okay.
Dude, I loved Mr.
So
Gold.
this one is coming from AIT.
He was my favorite.
14 hours
I
old.
was on his side. Every time he failed, I felt so bad. I was like, no, baby, no.
After what his parents told me. Throwaway account because my boyfriend also has
like
Reddit,
I was
but he doesn't follow
on his
this
side.
thread, just in case though.
I wanted him to be good so bad. I wanted him to win. I
I
wanted him to be good.
Male for 2 years.
And
We
it just
met at
didn't
an animal
happen.
shelter when I was looking to adopt my
It
now
just didn't
third dog.
happen.
Our love for animals is
You
what
know, it's
originally drew us
disappointing.
together.
It's disappointing.
We talked for several months before we
But-
started dating, and I met his parents pretty soon after we decided to make it official.
Ugh.
We do not live with each other, but we do visit each
Him
other
and
quite
Regina, I
often.
loved when him
We
and
have
Regina would
talked
get their
about
like
it
little
and agreed to
spats,
give it more
and they
time
would start
before we take
arguing with
that
each
next
other,
step.
just
That
making
time
snide
eventually came when we
comments.
decided we should take the next step. I went over to talk to his parents while he was at work to discuss it with them. They seemed pretty happy about it. that we were finally talking about being serious. Everything was going well until I mentioned that I live with a few pets and that they would be coming with me. I have about 3 dogs, 2 cats, and a turtle. That's where their faces changed. They asked me if their son knew about them and if I trusted their son to be with them. It was an odd question, but nothing worried me more than the look they gave me after I answered their question. The mom told me that the reason they didn't have any pets was because their son would end up killing them. He would unalive any animal that he came across when he was in his teenage years. The father told me, quote, he wouldn't have a reason to do it, he would just do it and then throw them away. I was horrified. I could not wrap my head around it. They continued to tell me about all the pets they used to have. They said that he stopped when he was 17 and that they think he grew out of it. I simply thanked them for letting me know and left. I still love the man, but now I don't know what to feel. I postponed moving in together with the excuse that my lease ends soon and that I wanted to wait until then. He has asked to come over and I've declined, and the times where I have let him in, I've asked a friend to watch over my pets. He has asked about them, stating that he misses them. He has brought food and new toys for them, which makes me feel bad for not wanting him near them. When he does come by to visit and I can't find a babysitter to watch over them, I would keep a close eye on him, and I would actively go out of my way to keep my pets away from him. Ever since his parents told me, I lived with the thought that one day he would unalive them. He hasn't shown any signs of wanting to hurt them. He has been great with them, and my cat even sits on his lap when he is over. But now, I do not want him anywhere near them. Am I the asshole?
Okay, before we get into like the serious stuff, these parents just being like, "Oh, so you have pets, huh? You know, Greg used to kill all our pets when he was a teenager. You know, but he grew out of it. He grew out of it. Like what? The parents talking to her about this in such a like." We don't know what this conversation sounded like in person, but it just sounds so like
Nonchalant.
Cavalier.
Like, what?
What is happening?
Oh, and so they told her all this with the son not in the room, present.
That's what it sounds like.
What? Okay, and also the parents, the way they're talking about this, I'm like, if my child, as a teenager, like especially, I was like waiting for him to be like when he was 3.
Yeah,
I'm
5.
like, okay, like before he knew what was happening. He was a teenager.
Yeah.
Full on Jeffrey Dahmer style, killing animals. I'm like, dude, you'd be. Did they put him in therapy? Like, did they do anything? It just feels like they just accepted it as a thing, and they kept getting new pets, and he kept killing them, and they're like, yeah, there goes another one. That's
no, Timmy killed a new fish.
The most messed up
I have a
story
pimple on my
I've
elbow,
ever
and it
heard.
hurts so much.
But I'm
o'clock.
just baffled by the parents and the way they're going about this. But I can say if I was in, this is tough because I feel like this is.
I'll be back.
Sadly to say, like
before.
you hear about this with men.
I'll fight
like,
the
this is
fight and
obviously,
win the
like,
war.
One of
For
the
your
clear signs of a
love,
future serial killer.
for your praise, and all love you so much. I am
if you're in a place where you're trying to hide your pets from your partner, you can't be with that partner.
No, it's done.
You're done.
So don't throw away.
I don't even know. I don't think I would be able to communicate this and address this. And maybe that people could say I'm in the wrong for that. That's fine. I would have to just go.
Yeah.
I'd have to make an excuse and get out.
No, I'm in the same exact boat. I don't think you can proceed forward. And like, I mean,
Where
you
my
saw me lock
napkins
the door to
go?
the studio, and like, I'm a little bit of a paranoid person when it comes to safety. But like, him even bringing food over, I'm like, okay, well, is that food already poisoned? Like, is there nefarious intentions by like the toys? Is like that toy
There it
like
is.
laced with something? Like, no matter how good of an intention he might have now, in the back of my mind and maybe OP's mind, you can't even assume it's a good intention anymore because of this information you learned about. And the fact that it was up until age 17, okay, what was it, 17 and 364 days? Was it right before 18 and he just didn't want to be like prosecuted as an adult and that's why he stopped, or he moved out and got sneakier.
Yeah.
Like, he was at an animal shelter.
I know.
What was he doing there?
Wait, that flip up is crazy.
That's weird. You don't go from killing animals to then going to the animal shelter. Like, why was he there?
Yeah, no, and especially that's not far removed because he's young still.
Yeah.
They're in their early 20s.
Early 20s.
So that's only, they're saying, oh, when he was 17. It's like, no, say 6 years ago he stopped doing this. And I'm like, that's
6 years.
Too recent. And they've been dating for 2.
Yeah.
So he was only a couple of years removed from this behavior. I'm out.
I'm out.
I'm fully out.
Yeah.
Unless the parents are just fully lying. But that would also be scary and weird. And I'd probably be out for that. And that, even if that's not his fault, if his parents are just making up a crazy lie, but I'd still be scared and get out of there.
Yeah, it's really weird. I'm so confused about the parents and how they didn't put him in therapy, but OP does have some comments, and there's like a little bit additional info. He has told me that his parents did punish him a lot when he was younger. Quote, I did a lot of dumb shit back then, and they would beat my ass for it, is what he would say. As far as I know, he has never gotten into therapy. He has told me that he used to have a few pets, but that they died. I don't quite remember him telling me how they died. He looked so sad that he didn't want to push the subject. He treats my pets well and would ask to see them quite often. Sometimes he would just ask to come over just to play with my dogs. He has said he started volunteering at animal shelters at 18 and has continued since. He moved out at 19 and doesn't really visit his parents or talk to them often.
Dude, that switch up is wild.
I'm actually scared.
I don't trust it either. Oh man, that sucks.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Would you call him out on it, or would you just for your own safety, just break up and just
if I'm in her position, especially, if I'm gonna call him out, I need a group of 10
Dude,
men.
I would never call him out. The way I'd be no, I gotta go. I just gotta go.
I am fully prepared.
You're not good enough
if
for
this
me.
is true, then I don't know what you're capable of, and I don't know what your reaction's gonna be.
Yeah.
I would not fault her for just getting out of there and not. Yeah.
You have to. You just. Those are a lot of the comments too. OP run now.
Oh my god, yeah.
You have to. I'm going to put another spin on this. One of his parents have narcissistic tendencies, and they made the story up to keep their son at home.
That's what I said. But even if that's the case, I'd still be tripped up, and I'd be like, I gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
Because if that's the case, I feel bad for the son, but I don't know. That to me is a pretty wild assumption. I'm not saying it can't be true.
Yeah.
But weird.
Yeah. Well, OP does comment back. He moved out at 19. He hasn't stayed with them in years, so I don't know. It doesn't seem like they have good reason for that to be a case.
Yeah.
And then that doesn't really make sense.
It's not really believable to me. Anything's possible.
Yeah.
But that's not what my mind is jumping to.
No.
And there are a lot of parents out there who would tell people stuff like that, but they would also downplay behaviors like that. They're just like, I used to do this stuff. But the fact that they're warning her is strange. It sounds like the beginning to a horror film.
I would agree. As of 11 hours ago, OP has not confronted him yet. So we'll see how this plays out. But top comment, not the asshole. What the actual fuck? You're not overreacting here. If his own parents are telling you he used to harm animals, that's a huge red flag. I get it. He's been good around your pets so far. But can you really risk it? And what was he doing in the animal shelter? Getting new victims? Nuh-uh. No way. It's a blessing that his parents told you about his past.
So he works at animal shelters, but he doesn't have a pet of his own.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that.
Yeah, OP did comment on it. And essentially he was just going to give back and help out because he loves animals so much. So it was a win-win for him.
This looks wrong. This does not look good at all.
It's fishy.
Yeah.
It's fishy for
No,
sure.
it sounds like the Antichrist.
It's a little convenient.
Yeah.
Maybe I just...
Damn. Oh, God.
Yeah.
That's rough.
That is rough.
That's really rough. That's recent too.
Yeah.
Man, you really find the devastating ones.
I know. Well, okay. So I felt I didn't even introduce our theme today. Well,
our theme is the worst stories you've ever heard.
I know.
I'm kidding.
Traumatizing Shane. That's the theme today. It was kind of like a mix of like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean here? And like, well, I had to read it, so now you have to share in the suffering with me.
Right.
So it's kind of that, but we're gonna get a little lighter on the next one.
No, it's okay.
So it's
I can handle it.
It's gonna get a little better.
I can handle
for
it
a second.
I'm just a little shocked.
I know.
No, last thing I'll say on that one, I'm curious your opinion. I've said it a lot, which is under the age of 25, if someone's in a relationship where, especially something at this level, but even much more minor than that, if you're under the age of 25 and you're not happy in the relationship you're in, I'm like, just get out of it.
Yeah.
Just go. You're young, like, experience other relationships. That's my mindset. You know, like,
I'm the same
if you
way.
don't have kids, if you're not married, it's like, I mean, even if you are married, but especially when you're 23.
Yeah.
And especially, like, frankly, like, women dating, like, men who are under 25, I'm like, he doesn't know who he is yet. So you don't know who you're really dating. So if you're not happy, especially if they show any sort of dangerous behaviors, get out.
Yeah, this is not worth it. I would be done, but I completely agree. I think like
I'm trying to get to 100, which is why I'm still going. I would have stopped earlier, but I'm like so
have
close.
These like mile markers. Like I found my person at 25. We're engaged 2 years later. Married by 27. Kids by 30. Don't do that to yourself.
No.
Like don't put that pressure on yourself. Everyone goes at their own pace, and like you take this as a lesson learned. You dodge the biggest bullet.
Oh my God.
Like you are going to be so much better off for this, and you'll have peace of mind going forward. Because if you stayed with this person, you would constantly be sleeping with one eye open, looking over your shoulder, and that's no way to live.
Yeah. And if the parents are to be believed, and that's a true story, there's a very good chance that she will wake up and hear a story about him killing someone.
Yeah.
Like, just honestly.
Yeah. I mean, this is like, they talk about animals, like hurting animals is like the gateway to serial killing. Like you don't hurt innocent things if your screws are all tight in your head. Like there's something here. Whew. What's the worst? What's the worst one? Was it this one today? Or what is like the most standout? I think sort of
violence towards animals is always super jarring.
I'm sorry, everyone.
No, I'm here like I can withstand listening to the stories and talking about them.
You can handle it.
It's just I just mean like when I read about a person, I'm like on my scale of how bad of a person are you.
Oh yeah, this is up there.
It gets beyond like you're an asshole. It's like, oh, you're a horrible monster.
Yeah.
But I hope the parents are lying. I hope
Fingers crossed. I mean, there's always a chance. Always a chance. Did you read the coconut story?
The coconut story?
Oh my God, Shane.
Man, you're making me feel like an amateur.
You've read Poop Knife, right?
Of course I've read Poop Knife.
Okay.
Of course I've read Poop Knife.
Everyone that's listening is like screaming at me, don't read the coconut story again.
The coconut story?
Yeah.
Maybe I have heard. I don't think I've read the coconut story.
You would definitely remember it.
Is it an old one or is it
It's
newer?
in the Reddit Hall of Fame.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
I'll let you ponder that one.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I know what I'm doing right after this.
All right, I'm gonna stop.
Like screaming.
Bye.
No!